Welcome to the Geek Homeworld podcast. I'm your host, Ed, aka the Savage Tech Man. We talk film, TV, and tech, all from a geek perspective. You can find us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and you can subscribe and follow on YouTube at Geek Homeworld. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Be a part of the Geek Homeworld. Hello, everyone, and welcome as we're getting set up here for another brand new episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. I'm your host, Ed Ciucevich here, and thank you for joining us. A little bit of notification on this. Digital K-Man, thank you for showing up. Greetings. He's in the chat there. If you want to come on camera, you're welcome to. Let me know, K-Man. It's cool otherwise. But like a lot of things I do, this is spontaneous, so it was a little bit planned. This episode sponsored by Unsweetened Tea, favorite of diabetics such as myself. Can't chat much on the road. Okay, so K-Man's on the road. That's awesome. Well, keep your eyes on the road while you're watching this. I'm sure this will be short and sweet like everything I do. Ha ha ha. Anyway, so to the 51 subscribers we have to the channel, we're trying to grow the YouTube here. If you ever listen, like and subscribe. Call up your neighbors and tell them they need to subscribe to the podcast, and they'll thank you later. And or they'll call the cops and ban you from ever talking to them again. I don't know. I'm just pulling that out of the sky. I hope my lighting's good. It looks a little dark in here, but it's probably not. Blame it on sunshine or lack thereof. Actually, there's plenty of it. Anyway, so what am I here to talk about? Well, this is episode, as you can see at the crawl at the bottom of the screen here, this is episode 168 of the Geek Homeworld podcast. This is our Oscars 2024 post show. You should check out our pre-show that we did just the Sunday or Saturday, whatever, day before the Oscars. And for the Oscars, this was it was good. My initial thoughts were we need a new host. I think Jimmy Kimmel's a little bland at this point. Nothing against Jimmy Kimmel. I just feel we need some new blood. John Mulaney was a standout. He did like I don't know if it's the governor's ball or whatever it is, like the pre-Oscars ceremonies or whatever, maybe where they hand out other Oscars, I'm not sure. But even his little Field of Dreams montage that he had on the show was significantly funnier than most things that Jimmy Kimmel did. Of course, classic where they're this time actually, because they started at 7 p.m. the telecast, and I missed like the first hour and a half. I literally came on right when he made that joke about people just tuning in. I forgot to record it, and I forgot that it came on an hour early, so I was watching other things, and by the time I got to the broadcast, I was late to the show, and I've caught up on some of the stuff I missed, including his terrible Robert Downey Jr. joke. I didn't think was relevant at all. Especially on the biggest night of Robert Downey Jr.'s career in acting. And so I thought it was in poor taste. But anyway, so, I came late to the show to watch it. And I know a lot of people don't watch it. There are people still trashing it, say this Oscars was terrible. I don't know at the recording of this what the ratings were, but I enjoyed it. Mainly because it wasn't so preachy, it wasn't so political. Yes, there were a couple political speeches which were appropriate, and all that, and weren't an issue for me, and but nobody really tunes in to watch all the preachy diatribes that people go on. We want you to accept your war. We want heartfelt speeches. Probably the most heartfelt speech that did get cut off, and also probably lost in translation a little bit, was the team from Godzilla -1 that deservedly, we'll talk about that, beat, I think it was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and it's kind of controversial, but it upset and won, and on the budget they had of only $12 million, I applaud them, because Godzilla -1 was, I think, my number 2 movie of last year. It was that good. And I'm not really a major Godzilla fan, but we'll talk about that later in the episode here. And I welcome any of your anybody who joins in on the live stream. Like I said, it wasn't terribly planned ahead, maybe 15 minutes ahead. But by my standards, that's a lot of notice. So anyway, if you're tuning in at this point, or if you're tuning in later, you can also make comments. But if you want to comment and let's have a discussion in the live chat here, certainly I'm up for that. So bring your opinions. And anyway, so Jimmy Kimmel as a host, I mean, it just felt like kind of by the numbers. But like I did say, towards the end when the ceremony did go a little bit, I don't know if it really, I don't know the actual length of it, but maybe because it started at 7 p.m. Eastern, it ended like before, it was like 10 something, I think, when it was before 11 o'clock, definitely when it ended, at least Eastern time zone. So they had the live tweet from Trump, and I thought that was one of the best jokes of the night. And he's talking about Trump, Kimmel, said, "Oh, you're Mr. President, aren't you up past your jail time?" Which I thought was hilarious. But anyway, it's a joke, people. It was a joke, so don't get offended. Anyway, but all in all, it was okay. Next year, I want John Mulaney to do it because he's just genuinely more funny, I find, and so that it's nice to have his. As a host, I think he would be a lot more fun, and it's time we kind of switch things up anyway. So, anyway, that's my thoughts about that. Overall, as a broadcast, like I said, we don't know the numbers yet. They may release them. We'll cover it in a future episode if necessary. But the big news of the night was the overwhelming dominance of Oppenheimer, which from the moment I think I saw the poster for it well over a year ago. And I think before I even saw the first trailer, I was like, that's going to be a best picture. I was like, I stopped and saw all the names and like, oh my gosh. And Oppenheimer, this sounds interesting, and it's Nolan. And this ended up being, yes, enhanced by the Barbenheimer phenomenon, which Nolan has never addressed, which is fine. Because the film can stand on its own, but I'm glad it got swept up in something, and people that wouldn't have seen Oppenheimer sat through 3 solid hours of perfect filmmaking, so they got to see the masterpiece that it is, and everyone else, and so I can't be much more excited for Nolan than he is. The moment when he got Best Director, and Spielberg gives him the Oscar, that speaks very much to a kind of passing of the torch from the great Steven Spielberg to Nolan. Like, Nolan's this next generation, I think, of Spielbergs and Scorsese's and whatever else, whoever you think are Coppola's and I can't think of any Aliens. Gosh. I just recently watched a video about storyboarding for my class, one of my classes, and he did Aliens. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Who directed Aliens and everything else? Not Kubrick. Well, Kubrick's a great director too. So, I'm putting Nolan up there with the greats. Hitchcock. I watched a great video about Hitchcock, which love Hitchcock. I love suspense in films. But anyway, so Nolan's up there in that echelon, and he's up there in that echelon of people that are really trying to preserve the go-to theaters experience of film in theaters, thing that he's trying to promote, and he's trying to promote that, and we should do that. I don't want to see the film industry, and like I said on previous episodes, especially the last one, I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to see that experience go away, because I love going to a theater. I could sleep in a theater if I had to. Sometimes they're so comfortable I do fall asleep, even during good films. But I want that experience to still be something. I don't want it to go the way of libraries. Nothing against libraries, because they've survived somehow. It's kind of like vinyl. It survived, and now it's made a resurgence. But I want the theater-going experience. And I think if you make really good films, original, really good films, you will get that audience in there. And I don't want that whole experience to go away. And Nolan's one of those carriers of the torch, if you want to call it that, of like preserving film, and like Peter Jackson and Steven Spielberg, and keeping that momentum going. So Spielberg kind of, giving him that Best Director award, which, think about it. Color Purple was definitely one of the films that Spielberg should have gotten Best Director, Best Picture, and the fact that I got snubbed back in the day, pretty much, at least for Spielberg, is a crime unto itself. There's a lot of crimes in the history of awards, and Spielberg not getting his due Oscar-wise is definitely one of those snubs, one of those crimes against humanity. Yeah, I said it. As Chris Rock would say. I'll wait, as Cat Williams said. I love 6 million people to watch this stream. But no. Crimes against humanity in the sense of, and I don't mean that in a literal sense, but I mean that in the figurative sense, that in the creative sense, that Spielberg, just like John Williams, and in conjunction most times with John Williams, has been the soundtrack of my entire life. So as long as I've been on this earth, almost 54 years, Spielberg and Williams are very important parts. So I always will hold Spielberg like Scorsese, even though I think his films are bloated, and that he could, even though his editor can win awards, God bless her, she doesn't really get to edit much, and she could probably, if she had her way, she'd probably edit a lot more, I imagine. But as great as Scorsese's films are, they're very self-indulgent, and that he could really chop usually a good 20 to 30 minutes out of a film and, make it better. But he still has nothing to prove, because Scorsese's made so many of the most important and enjoyable films, like Spielberg, And anyway, so back to Nolan, back to Oppenheimer. Not to take anything from Nolan, I'll always be a fan of The Dark Knight. And, if I had to say Black Panther winning Oscars and then Dark Knight not winning Oscars, it was about the time that nobody really appreciated superhero films, and Nolan elevated the level of superhero films so much that DC changed their entire plan, which eventually they ran into the mud, and James Gunn supposedly is going to resurrect in a good positive way a new DC out of the DCEU, and that's another story for many episodes of the podcast that we've done before. So anyway, but we look at the art of filmmaking, and Nolan is someone that takes it to the next level from his 70 millimeter cuts of his films, which are rare, and Dune Part 2 is doing so well at the box office, only a 40-something% drop off, maybe 43% in its second week, which is very good for something that opens as large as it did. We'd want the box office numbers better, but they're still respectable, like 367 million roughly to the recording of this on March 12th. That's only like a week or two into its release, and that's what we're seeing, international box office, and it opened with like 80 million, which is really good, topping the 40 million that Dune had day and date release that the director was highly upset about, and that was only a 40 million release box office wise, because people just sat home and watched the first Dune, which was an exceptional film, and Dune 2 somehow surpassed the original that he did. So we have such great directors out there, and people making films, and Oppenheimer was just a masterpiece of filmmaking. It's more a thinking person's film. Yes, it has some of the action you'd expect, but like Dark Knight hit all the right notes, and it set a tone for superhero films, and beyond that, that you could make an intelligent superhero film. Maybe the days of superhero films seem like they're on the way out, and that's a possibility. we may never have the in-game kind of Infinity War in-game heights that we saw in 2018, 2019. Those days may be gone, when a studio can pump out like $7 billion films in 1 year. Pandemic changed a lot of things, of viewing habits, and it's a new generation coming up, and they want smaller films. Like one of the winners at the Oscars the other night said, if you take, and I'm paraphrasing here, if you take like the $200 million you spend on one film, you could do, I don't know what the number was, maybe 10 smaller films. And Godzilla Minus One was an example of a budget of only $12 million, and they ended up winning an Oscar. And we'll get to that one. But yeah, that what they did with so little, and some people are saying, oh, is amazing. But some people are like, oh, well, they're probably non-union or whatever. Regardless, maybe here's something crazy. Maybe your costs are too high. And I know, ooh, shots fired, right? But it's not really that so much. I mean, I just think they did with, I think, 35 VFX artists with the $12 million budget, and only those many VFX artists for special effects. They did so much, so convincingly, so Oscar worthy, that it surpassed what a $200, $300, $400 million with maybe a team of 200 VFX artists could do. So big Hollywood, big budget Hollywood, you need to look and you need to listen, and you need to look at these little smaller guys and gals in the industry that are what they're doing, and what they're doing so well. And there's my poster, my IMAX poster, if you're watching the video here, of Godzilla Minus One. Fantastic film. So excited about that. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to it. But big Hollywood, you need to listen. But I still love my big budget films. I always will. My tentpole films. And Oppenheimer was one of them. And I don't know if I'd call it a tentpole film. It kind of became that. But it could have easily been an $80 million box office achievement and won all these Oscars. Box office is kind of irrelevant, but the fact that so many people saw it, I almost thought that would almost like Barbie cancel it out from awards. And Greta Gerwig has nothing to be ashamed about by not getting the nomination for director. And like the host of the Oscars said, and I forget his name now, it shows you how much I care for his hosting abilities. They're okay. I mean, they're just, they're like a gallon of milk, whatever. But in saying all that, it's just like, you get what I'm saying. I forgot. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but Greta Gerwig. So with Greta Gerwig, what she's done, she had an amazing film. I enjoyed Barbie. Was it as Oscar worthy as it probably got nominated for? No. There were much better films than Barbie last year. But I see the significance and the importance of the film and the Barbenheimer phenomenon that was, and it was fun. And if that engages audiences and gets people back in the seats, buying tickets, attending films, keeping the film industry alive, then guess what? I'm all there for it. By all means. Totally all there for it. So, bring it on. Let's get people back in the cinemas. I wish we can make things more affordable so families that have, kids can afford, drinks, concessions, whatever, in the ticket prices. And, and they can go and see a film and enjoy it. And we have to look at the types of programmings that we do, and what we put out there for people in the industry, for the customers, the people that are coming to watch your films, and keep giving them opportunities, keep giving them what they want to see, and then that can make all the difference in the world. So Oppenheimer won, I think, 7 awards. Including Best Picture, Best Director, and a lot more. Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, What else? I'm looking at my notes here because yes, I have notes. I'm missing something. Best cinematography, yes, definitely. We also had, I'm missing something. Best film editing. Killers of the Flower Moon, it was nominated. Wasn't going to get that. Best original score, which, looking at the category, I can see why. And I probably missed something else in here. But, anyway, so among that, well-deserved. And so anyway, yeah, Oppenheimer was kind of a shoo-in in a lot of the wins that it got. It was up there with Return of the King, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King for the 13 nominations that it had. And I was hoping for Lord of the Rings, Return of the King kind of sweep, but it didn't happen. But other than like Return of the King, this is the highest grossing film, box office wise, at least domestically, I guess, that got nominated and won Best Picture. So, it's still, adulation for Christopher Nolan and his entire team of hardworking people that deserve all the Oscars they can get. We also had Emma Stone's upset win over Lily Gladstone for Best Actress. Let's see, Lily Gladstone didn't play as prominent a role as Emma Stone did in her film, Poor Things. Lily Gladstone, of course, in Killers of the Flower Moon. Now, her performance was great, but I was watching Kristen Harloff's, before I jumped on here, take on it, and they were talking about, Scorsese shouldn't have kept her in the bed in all the scenes, should have had her more vital, but I don't know what they're talking about there, but, she wasn't as energetic or as into the role as Emma Stone was. Now, I have not seen Poor Things. Scott was going to be here, if you're wondering, by the way, but he had told me earlier he's just not going to have time this week because there's wrestling and other things going on, and other things he's busy with, so I respect that. I respect people's time, so I figured I'd just jump on here, and I have to give my post show because it's a tradition. It's what we do, the pre-show and then the post for the Oscars every year. So wish he was here, but that happens sometimes with scheduling and stuff. Hard to get things in line. But in saying all that, Emma Stone winning, the film was about her character, and so she was central to it, and she was more dynamic from everything I've read and reviews and videos I've watched about it and stuff I've read. It's well deserved, and it's her second win, and so happy for her. Lily Gladstone can have a wonderful career ahead of her. The fact that she's the first Native American nominee for Best Actress is wonderful. It's fantastic. We need more. I love that diversity. I like it, and I want to see more of that. But I think that I enjoyed her performance. I didn't think Killers of the Flower Moon was a great film. I thought it was a good film. There were some great things about it, but overall, it was a good film, And but it seems like Emma Stone deserves a little bit more for her portrayal. Divine Joy Randolph's speech was very emotional. It was great. Basically, she said, all this time, I loved what she said, and you could tell it was from the heart. She's like, all this time people were telling me, she thanked everybody that pushed her in the direction that she's in now. And she said, all the time I was trying to be somebody else when I realized all I really needed to be was just myself. And I'm like, wow, what a powerful statement that is. Cillian Murphy's win for Best Actor in Oppenheimer, so well deserved and definitely predictable. Just like Robert Downey Jr., they followed a lot of the things down the line through the awards season, pretty much swept through it. A lot of Oppenheimer-related stuff did. And rightfully so, it deserved all the accolades, still does deserve all of the accolades that film has gotten. I don't think you can give it enough accolades for how great it was. And definitely a career-defining film. So, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito, and Michael Keaton in that Batman moment it seemed unscripted, and it was one of the funniest things of the night. Somebody said if George Clooney was there, that would have been, because that would have been the Batman for Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze character. But I thought it was also a mini twins reunion. Whenever those two get together, we call it a twins reunion. Such a funny film. But that Batman moment with Michael Keaton, he's like, I'm watching you, kind of, it's, he's like, bring it. Or that's what he was doing, like he does in Batman. But for a lot of people, Keaton's the ultimate Batman. I can't disagree with you there. And it was really good to see that moment. I really enjoyed that. A lot of geeks like myself appreciated that more than anything else. And I hear myself clicking. Is that on my phone here? That's weird. Okay. So anyway, sorry. I'm distracted. Kind of watching my live stream just on the monitor here. So yeah, fantastic moment. Really, it really was in there. Seeing that was a very fun moment. But the showstopper, do the performance but don't win the award. And I'm kind of happy the way it happened that it didn't win the award. It wasn't the best song, but it was a fun song. But Ryan Gosling throwing his everything into I'm Just Ken, that performance was fantastic. It really was. And so that was just really cool to see all those moments with that, how it was, the film and all that. So very interesting to see how much fun they had, and Slash showing up in the I'm Just Ken performance was fantastic. I loved everything about it. And the crowd was so into it. They had the words up there so you could sing along at one point. So even though that film didn't win from Barbie, it was definitely one of the highlights of the film, and definitely, if not a scene stealer. But Gosling just so into showing that was really cool. He put his all into it, and it just shows, when you really care about a film and you really care about your performance, and he kind of made that a viral moment. So, that was pretty awesome in that. So, but what else? So we had that going on, and what else? That was just a fun moment. So I know we're yip-yapping here. I've got no time limit on this. And but let's those were some of the highlights for me, and I may have missed some things in there. I tried to write down everything I could think of that I enjoyed about the I almost said performance, but yeah, I mean the whole show. And well, let's get into, and I'm just going to start at the big ones and just work my way down. This is how I generated my list here. So Best Picture, the nominees were American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. I saw most of the films in there. American Fiction I missed, and it was supposed to come back to theaters, but in my town didn't, so I didn't get to see it. Still want to see it. Didn't see Anatomy of a Fall. It sounds very interesting. I've always loved that title. That sounds like an Oscar film, Anatomy of a Fall. It's a good play on words that I like there. Barbie, The Holdovers. I saw Barbie. I saw The Holdovers. Holdovers was very good. If Oppenheimer didn't win Best Picture, Holdovers would have been one that I probably would have personally pushed for. Killers of the Flower Moon, okay. If it got it, I wouldn't have been upset. But actually, I would have been, because anything less than Oppenheimer, I would have been disappointed. I don't know if upset's the word I'm looking for, but Oppenheimer was definitely one of the highlights for me. It was definitely one of the things that I was looking for. Sorry, I'm having a little problem with my monitor over here off screen. See if I can tighten that up a little bit. There we go. But yeah, I wanted Oppenheimer to win, from the moment I heard about the film, and then I saw the first trailer, and then the second trailer, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be epic. And it was, and it still is. And so anyway, we have Best Picture winner was Oppenheimer. Best Director, Justin Triet For Anatomy of a Fall, Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest. Once again, Oppenheimer getting Best Director, Nolan's first. I think he had 8 nominations. I'm not sure. Every one of his films pretty much should have been nominated if it wasn't, or he should have been nominated for Best Director. He is one of the best, and this definitely proves it. Finally, the Academy realizes it, but obviously Best Director was Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, a win there, and very, very much so deserved. I could see that maybe this could be Scorsese getting towards the end of his career, and could he have gotten maybe in Oscars past, he might have gotten the, not sympathy vote. Sympathy is not the right word, but, maybe the popular vote. But everybody was on board with Oppenheimer, just how great it was. And Nolan deserves it. And I love that he can kind of call the shots now on some of his things. So that's some of his projects. That's great. More power to him. Best Actor, Bradley Cooper from Maestro. Started watching Maestro, didn't think it was all that great, turned it off. And to paraphrase Scott, he thought it was going to be more about Leonard Bernstein, but and he can correct me later in another episode if I'm misrepresenting what he said. But and I've also heard this other places that it wasn't as much on the brilliance and technique of Leonard Bernstein as we had hoped. Now, I think it was written, produced, directed, all that good stuff by Bradley Cooper. I don't know about directed, but he's a guy who can do anything, it seems like, Bradley Cooper. So, good for him for being nominated for Best Actor for Maestro, but he didn't deserve a Best Actor win for that, and he didn't get it. Coleman Domingo is a rising talent. He's very, very good. He was in The Color Purple. I forgot that he was in Fear the Walking Dead back in the day. He's a great actor, and I would love to see him in some more stuff. So he got nominated for Best Actor for Rustin. Paul Giamatti, I really thought it was probably a career high for him. Had he won Best Actor, I thought there could have been some kind of sentimentality for him getting it for The Holdovers, and he really deserved it. I would not have had of course, I'm Team Oppenheimer here, so I had a little bit of problem. I would have had a little bit of problem with it, but I would have been terribly disappointed if he won, because it was a very good performance that he gave in The Holdovers. We had Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction, which I hear is very good. I like Jeffrey Wright. He's a good actor. I think he is the voice of the Watcher on the What If series for Marvel, which brilliantly cast. Great voice. He has a great, great voice for that, for the voiceover. Cillian Murphy won, of course, for Oppenheimer. So happy to see him get his credit. He's an Irish-American actor, and fantastic for him to represent that way. He is, a great actor. He's been in a lot of Nolan films, and I think he said when he heard that Nolan was doing a film, he's like, I'm there, and, who wouldn't be, right? I think that's kind of mirrored by Robert Downey Jr., when Nolan says I'm making a film, you're like, yes. And kind of riding the Roland train. That's one of Roland's, Christopher Nolan, the Nolan train, hashtag Nolan train. Cillian Murphy, definitely. Not Killian. Oh, it is Killian. Sorry, I'm saying Cillian Murphy. I always said it wrong because I look at it phonetically, but it's Cillian Murphy. So Killian. Sorry. It's Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer. And he's been on that Nolan train, and it's done him well, and he's finally getting his due. So pretty awesome. We get Best Actress next, with the nominees were Annette Bening, Naiad, Lily Gladstone, Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone, Poor Things. Emma Stone had the upset here, the winner, and some people try to throw shade at Emma Stone for winning over Lily Gladstone, who still made history as being nominated for Best Actress, for the first Native American to be nominated for Best Actress. She would have been the first Native American actress to win Best Actress. Maybe in the future, but this time Emma Stone just owned that award, and It's not always about what's politically right or what's woke at the moment or whatever. It's about the performance, and it comes down to that no matter who you are, where you're from, or what you did, as long as you love me. I had to do that for Backstreet Boys fans out there. But it's about the talent, and it's about the role, and from my understanding, Emma Stone really enveloped her role, and so she well deserved the Best Actress. It was a bit of a surprise, a bit of a shock, but it's okay. It's okay, Awards are more fun sometimes when it's not always the front runner. Like if Nolan he didn't get all 13 wins, but, that's a lot to ask to get 13, but, it happens. Best Actress, so we had Emma Stone winning for Poor Things, the winner of that. Best Supporting Actor, Robert Downey Jr. won for Oppenheimer. I'm Team Oppenheimer. I'm Team Robert Downey Jr. He's just so awesome. He seems like such a wonderful human being. He's overcome a lot. That's why the Jimmy Kimmel talking about the joke, over drug addictions that Robert Downey Jr. had 30 years ago, and this was the high point in his career, but not the highest, and he was referring to drugs. And Robert Downey Jr. is such a good sport, but I felt it was a distasteful joke. It was unfunny. It was unnecessary. Jimmy Kimmel, so didn't like you for that, and that was just dog water. It was trash, bro. Bro, excuse me. Trying to be funny there. Saying, bro, it's dog water, bro. Anyway, but we had Sterling K. Brown, who's a great actor, American Fiction. Robert De Niro, Killers of the Flower Moon. We said these are the nominees for Best Supporting Actor. Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. So we have Ken versus Iron Man versus the Hulk, all in this Best Supporting Actor. So Marvel's got their stamp on some things, and Mattel as well in there. But Robert Downey Jr. winning for Oppenheimer as Best Supporting Actor, just a career-defining thing. He should have won for Chaplin like 30 years ago, but I'm glad he finally won, and he did. His wasn't the greatest role, but it was he embodied that role, and it took me a moment in first watching it to realize, oh my gosh, that's Robert Downey Jr. there, So kudos to him. More awards for him, please, and let's let him get more roles beyond Tony Stark and Marvel films. If they somehow bring him back from the dead some ways, AI or whatever they do, if they do it respectfully without, with honoring, his sacrifice. And I don't need to bring Tony Stark back, just retire their character, we're good. But if they find some ingenious way that doesn't mess up his, sacrifice he made in Endgame, then I'm all for it to an extent. But, just do it respectfully and all that. So, Best Supporting Actress, Divine Joy Randolph winning for The Holdovers. She's pretty much swept all the way through, and well-deservingly. She really enjoyed it. America, it really deserved it. America Ferrera was nominated for Barbie. That was one of the high points, her little speech in there. And I enjoyed her. I enjoyed her since Superstore or whatever, and probably before that. Jodie Foster, fantastic actress. She was nominated in Best Supporting Actress for Nyad. And part of me thought, they might give it to her for her longevity in the career. And I think they said something about De Niro and her for Taxi Driver 30 or 40, maybe 50 years ago, that they were both nominated for that or something, for their performances or in the film at least. And, he won, of course, Best Actor for that. I think. I'm pretty sure. And anyway, so seeing that, I was like, that's kind of cool. But she was great in Contact and other films that I saw her in, Jodie Foster. And I thought maybe she could sneak in a upset for Best Supporting Actress, but I pretty much knew it was going to be Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. It was a great ensemble film, with great performances in that film. So very much enjoyed, and her speech was just even more beautiful. Emily Blunt was also nominated for Oppenheimer as Best Supporting Actress. Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, which is a surprisingly very good film. I can't say it lived up to the emotional intensity of the original Color Purple. I don't think anything could, but it was a close second there. It can hold its head up in pride and say that it was a well-made film, and I really enjoyed it. I think people should go and see both versions of The Color Purple. If you haven't, you definitely need to. So Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple was also nominated, along with Emily Blunt, America Ferrera, Jodie Foster, and Divine Joy Randolph. And Divine Joy Randolph won for The Holdovers. Best Adapted Screenplay. So it comes from something they adapted, essentially. It's another way I was asking Scott on our pre-show, like I always do, probably. So define what adapted screenplay versus original screenplay is, and he basically defined it with the words. I'm sure he did it more articulately than that. You can check out our previous episode to see. And but adapted screenplay, Barbie, I don't see how it's an adapted screenplay, but maybe it's adapted from an IP. I think that's how we figured it out. But the nominees were Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Zone of Interest, and also American Fiction. And this is where American Fiction, I don't know if this is a surprise as much. I hadn't heard that it was a surprise too much, but American Fiction is a winner for Best Adapted Screenplay. So there you go. Kudos for that film. It makes me want to see it even more and get caught up in some of my film watching. And maybe now that it's won, they'll put it out somewhere where I can actually see it, or on a streaming service that I can figure out where it's at. Then we had other things going on in there. So adapted screenplay, American Fiction was the winner there, with Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Zone of Interest as the other nominees. Best Original Screenplay, the winner was Anatomy of a Fall, and I have not seen that. It's been one of those ones that's on my list to see, but I didn't get to see it in theaters, and I didn't get to see it on streaming yet, but I definitely will be looking for it. The Holdovers was also nominated as Best Original Screenplay, along with Maestro, May, December, which is complete dog water trash. That was a horrible film. How it got Best Original Screenplay, I don't know. Terrible film. And I think it was made mostly in my hometown. And I'm not saying that to trash anybody that was on the film. It's not about the filmmakers. It's about the script. It's about the story. I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. I just thought it was terrible. And how it got to a Oscar nomination is beyond me. So, you can tell me respectfully in the comments to this video or the podcast episode or whatever, why you think it deserved to be in there. Maybe you can educate me on that, but I doubt it. I just think it was a terrible film. There's so many other films that had more original screenplays in there. I don't know if you can consider Godzilla -1, because the fact that it doesn't focus on the monster as much as the characters in there, which is, I think, the beauty and secret of that film, not just the award-winning, Oscar-winning special effects, but the story in it is better than most monster films, You definitely get more story-wise. So people that wouldn't go to a Godzilla film, I think would enjoy Godzilla -1. So I still highly recommend you checking that feature out. So other than that, let's see. We had... we're in Best Original Screenplay. Anatomy of a Fall was the winner, along with The Holdovers, Maestro, May, December, and Past Lives was a nominee. And I still have to check out Past Lives. It's kind of shot out of a film, seemed like to me, but apparently it's pretty brilliant. So, or at least Emma Stone's win proves that it's a very good film. Best Visual Effects, yes. And here's where this could have went a lot of different ways, and I still would have been happy. But these are the nominees. The Creator for Best Visual Effects. The Creator. Godzilla -1. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is now called Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning because they're dropping the Part 1, Part 2 thing. And then Napoleon, one of the biggest upsets this past year. I thought it was going to be such a great film. It had the potential to be. And no, I've not seen it. I had many chances to see it. And I just didn't want to see it because I heard so many, and from my friend had seen it, and I saw videos about it, that it really wasn't the film we were anticipating, and it could have been. It really could have been a phenomenal film, and it probably is still a good film. I'd still probably enjoy it. But Joaquin Phoenix, just the possibilities of what he could have done with that role, and it just went a different way. The whole tone of it was totally different than what we were expecting or hoping for, I suppose. And so I'm glad that visual effects, that it got a nomination there, but the fact it was only in visual effects kind of tells you the story was a little bit lacking. It wasn't what, maybe our expectations were subverted once again, without not to a good outcome, I suppose. But best visual effects, the first nominee, and this is The Creator, which is a crime that film is so underrated. Yeah, it's got its problems, but visually, it could have won best visual effects, and I would have been excited. But as I'm pointing to the poster back here, the IMAX poster of Godzilla -1, which is an awesome movie poster, by the way, it won best visual effects. And we talked about on the $12 million budget, which is unheard of in Hollywood. Basically, it's almost a low budget film at that point compared to like $200, $300, $400 million films that big studios are spinning out. They did so much with so little in this film, and I'm glad they were rewarded for their efforts with an Oscar for best visual effects. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 obviously is an example right there. It beat Guardians 3, and Guardians 3 was a good film. Not a great film, but it was a good film. It's a good film to end at least that part of the trilogy on, right? But, whether it continues or not, it probably will because it made money. But it was one of the few, if the only win Marvel had last year. So, very touching story. Went a little bit farther than I thought it would for a kid-friendly type of Marvel film, but it still was a good film. It had its flaws, but visually it's a good film, and, as usual. Now, I was pleasantly surprised to see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 in the nominations, but so glad, because we don't really think of the visuals that much. We think of, everything's almost realistic because Tom Cruise does all his own stunts. By the way, on a little aside here, a quick tangent, they talked about the stunts, and they keep congratulating the stunt people. We need an Oscar for stunts, and it needs to be called the Tom Cruise Stunt Award, and give him like the first award of it, give him the Lifetime Achievement for stunts because he does his own stunts, and he's like in his early 60s, and he's still giving his best on every film. I know every actor and actress can't do that. That's fine, but he has made it a point of his career. We almost watch the films to see all the Mission Impossible films, especially to see what new level of stunt work he's going to do. And I'm sure his insurance companies or whoever he can get to insure him, if he can, they're very nervous every time he goes out on one of these missions, new missions here. So just to see the all the things he's achieved in his career is just amazing. He's such a great artist, and I love watching his films. And I was happy for best visual effects that it got a nomination, because that film should have done so much better, but it literally it had 1 week of the big screens, and then Barbenheimer happened, and that got extended, and it took all the screens, all those big budget-friendly screens away from Mission Impossible, and that movie got kind of buried, unfortunately. And it's still a good, solid film. A lot of people loved it, but it just didn't do enough. I think it only did like $500 million, which is down from a couple $100 million less than the previous films were building up. So it should have been this upward trajectory, and that's kind of like dipped. But I think the next one will hopefully surpass that. Maybe it'll hit $1 billion or do something crazy good. But thank you, Tom Cruise, for keeping the film industry viable and alive. You and Nolan, to name a few. But best visual effects went to Godzilla -1. Like I said, I can't say enough good about that film. I need to go watch that film again, preferably in theaters if they put it back out. But that was an interesting category there. So then we get to Best Costume Design. This could have went to Barbie, which was nominated. Maybe Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, that were both nominated. Maybe even Napoleon, that was also nominated. But Poor Things won it. And from some of the stills and images I've seen from Poor Things, it probably deserved that. And so, I would have probably given it to Barbie. But, that it could have went either way in this category, I feel like, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Society of the Snow. And I did not see Society of the Snow. Scott talked about it on our pre-Oscar show, so if you want to know more about that, you want to check out episode 167 of the Geek Homeworld podcast, our preview, Oscars 2024 preview show. But it could have went anyway, and Poor Things won, so it got costume design and makeup and hairstyling. Sometimes those go hand in hand, not all the time, but sometimes. So that was great. Best Cinematography Award nominees were El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Of course, Oppenheimer won. So glad to see that cinematographer. He said, "Hey kids, there's this new thing called celluloid, basically film." He's like, "Y'all should give it a try," more or less. And I love this comment like that, So definitely that was, seeing that return to being rewarded for that return to more authentic sounding. It's kind of like, you can have a CD or you can have that crystal clear sound, which is great. Don't get me wrong, in the convenience of streaming music and all that, but you don't have the fidelity of like putting an album on vinyl. And this generation has been responsible coming up for realizing the importance of vinyl and the sound of it. Those little nicks and pops that you get over time with the record. It's just a little bit more tactile. It's because you can touch the CD, or the album, and you get the liner notes, which I miss liner notes, that you had in the CD booklets, but you also had in the actual albums, and you'd look at it. Sometimes it'd have the words to the songs, which was always helpful. And so, you're singing the right words. But it was just the whole experience when you got an album back in my time. And it's good to see things like that having gone away. Kind of like libraries, they still exist. People still find value in them, and that's great. And that's kind of how it is with, a lot of people, some purists in the film industry, especially like film students coming up. A lot of them coming up now probably never seen film in like real life, but hopefully there's a resurgence of that, and appreciating that portion of things, appreciating that aspect. So we have that with cinematography. We end up having Oppenheimer win, and thankfully so much. So great. And I could be wrong about this. I didn't put it in my notes, but I think he also won for cinematography on Black Panther. I could be wrong on that. Somebody won for Black Panther on something, and I thought it was this gentleman, and I forgot his name. I'm sorry. I'm too lazy to look it up. But the best cinematography, Oppenheimer, well deserved. I can't argue with that award there. Best production design, Barbie, I thought was going to win this. Killers of the Flower Moon was also nominated along with Barbie, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. And I thought this is the one place Barbie could get it, and it lost to Poor Things. So Poor Things, ended up winning 4 awards: costume design, makeup, and hairstyling, best production design, and Emma Stone for best actress. So, wow. Best sound isn't always the biggest, loudest thing. Thought Oppenheimer had a lock on this. I was wrong. The Creator, which is as a nomination for that, I could see that, because you have to make all these, sounds up and everything. So, being a soundy or audiophile or whatever you want to call it, I really appreciate the sound categories. And I could have seen Killers of the Flower Moon, even Napoleon, picking up nods for best sound. They got nominations, but, winning the award possibly. Oppenheimer, I thought, had a lock on it. Usually Nolan has sound locked down for wins. It's just how it is. But it went to Poor Thing. Excuse me. No, it didn't. Zone of Interest won for Best Sound. And like I said, I have not seen the film. I will probably always pick up on the sound and film because it's more important than the visuals. It really is. And the Zone of Interest, I'm definitely going to be listening more than I probably usually would since it won an Oscar for Best Sound. And I'm going to see if, compared to the other ones in there, if it deserved it. The creator, maestro, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, and The Zone of Interest were the nominees for Best Sound. Okay, that's all 5 of them. I didn't mention Dead Reckoning Part 1, Mission Impossible. I could see the use of sound in that. A lot of moving parts to that film, and I'm glad it got a second nomination there. So, along with, what was it? Best Visual Effects. It didn't win in either best digital effects or best sound, but the fact that it got nominated, I think, is still a win. I'd still take it. Sometimes nominations just as good as winning, especially when people don't think you'll get it. But Zone of Interest won best sound, so kudos to Zone of Interest for that one. Best film editing was. The nominees were Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things, with Oppenheimer for film editing winning. If Killers of the Flower Moon would have won Best Editing, I'd have a big bark about that because nothing against the editor, but it's Scorsese's fault. He doesn't know how to edit. He's too what's the word? When you build yourself up, I don't know what the word is. I mean, yes, he's a brilliant director. I can't take anything away from him, but the fact is, and I don't want to, but the fact is that he could use from a little bit better editing to some of his films, at least making them a little shorter, more digestible. But of those ones, Oppenheimer won, and it could have went anyway, almost any way for this. I thought Poor Things might have had a shot in this category. But Oppenheimer, even though it's a long film, yes, 3 hours, maybe indulgent. I don't feel like it was self-indulgent. I felt like it was more indulgent to the actual story, which is what you want to be. And so could it have been shortened? Yeah, probably in some parts, but still a masterpiece of a film and filmmaking. So I've got no problem with Best Film Editing, Oscar going to Oppenheimer, which it did. So that works for me. Best Original Score, American Fiction was a nominee, as long as Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. This would have been a John Williams win, who's retired, and I hear he's coming out of retirement, but, he's gotten, I don't know, was it 54 nominations? That's a crazy number, and won about half of those Oscars, I don't know. But he doesn't need an award to like Scorsese to prove how great he is, John Williams. So Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was not a great film. It's probably goes down as one of the worst in the franchise. It probably shouldn't have been made. It was too woke. It was dragging Indiana Jones through the mud, his character, kind of. And, I enjoyed it. Wasn't terrible, as some people say, but, I don't know. I don't think we did the character right by making that. It should have just left it. It probably should have stopped at a trilogy, to be honest. No Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. They should have not had that. But anyway, it gets a nomination, so that's saying something, I guess. For Best Original Score, American Fiction is in there. That's really good. I'm not sure of the score on that film, but have to definitely check that out. When I check it out, I'll be able to say more. But Oppenheimer won Best Original Score, so I can't argue with that. Everything about Oppenheimer is pretty much brilliant. Best Original Song. Now, a lot of people wanted I'm Just Ken from Barbie, and it obviously probably the highlight of that entire night of the Oscars was Ryan Gosling doing the whole Barbie performance with Slash and the camera crew and everybody he had on there is so funny, and the dancers and Simu Lee or whatever, is that his name? He's in I think I said his name wrong. Simi Lou. Forgive me on that. You have to correct me on that. But he showed up at the last minute to be on there with some of the other dancers, even though he had a small part in the film, and so he got to perform. That's pretty cool. But Best Original Song, the nominees were The Fire Inside, Flaming Hot, I'm Just Ken from Barbie, It Never Went Away, American Symphony, Was Zahai, A Song for My People from Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm sure I said that wrong. I apologize. I thought that was going to get it. I could see that, an indigenous song, blah, blah, blah. Felt like that could have gotten, representation vote there for winning it, but it didn't. And the one that I'm glad that won from Barbie, Billie Eilish and her brother, wrote it, but Billie Eilish performed, and she performed it on the show, which is almost a showstopper, but What Was I Made For from Barbie. So Barbie's still represented twice in Best Original Song, and it beat out I'm Just Ken and the others to win Oscar. So that's her second Oscar. The last one was No Time to Kill, the Bond film from a few years or so back. So I'm happy that she won her second Oscar. She's blown away, and she's so grateful for it. And great performance, great song. And so Best Original Song, What Was I Made For from Barbie by Billie Eilish. So congrats to Billie Eilish for that Oscar, her second one. Best Animated Short Film, Letter to a Pig, 95 Senses, Our Uniform, Pachyderm, and War Is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko, which was a winner. Now, there was I think there were some documentary films or whatever that won that were like 20 Days in Mariupol, Best Documentary Feature Film that won. And they had a very impassioned plea about Ukraine and all the war-related stuff. And what I heard, and I hadn't really made up my mind on this, but it seemed like when war is over, and I think Dan Murrell covered it in his video, is where I probably got this point of view from, and I have to verify it myself by watching it again, but because I had missed that original song. I don't know if that was in the beginning part of the telecast, but Sean Lennon was up there to accept it. It was him and Yoko Ono who couldn't make it, and anyway, they won an Oscar for War Is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko, and while I'm sure that was a great homage to that, it just seemed like they didn't talk anything about war, and you kind of expect that, especially when it's in your title of your film. And if anything, to say war is over, that's a nice sentiment. It definitely is, but war is not over. We've probably been closer to war than ever. We're in a war, or at least inadvertently, U.S. is kind of in a war, by proxy, I guess you would call it. But what's going on in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, and in the Middle East over there, and Israel and Palestine and stuff like that. It's just war is definitely not over. Would I like it to be? Of course, and hopefully calmer heads will prevail, and we'll find a way to peace in all conflicts in the world. But it's nice to be inspired by the music of John and Yoko that war is over, but it's not really over. So it feels like that kind of falls on deaf ears. I think Dan Murrell said it kind of felt like, getting the trophy and just to say you got an Oscar, but it's kind of like more window shopping than anything. Those weren't his words, but it doesn't feel as heartfelt as, some of the juxtaposed to the other ones winning Oscars and talking about the wars that are going on. So, but I am happy for Sean and Yoko to win the Academy Award, don't get me wrong, and of course love the music of John Lennon, not so much Yoko Ono's music, but anyway. So Best Animated Short Film, War Is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko, and I will check that out at some point, and I'm sure it's good and probably deserved an Oscar. It just seems a little tone deaf in the current climate of things, but I think that's what I'm kind of getting at. Best Live Action Short Film: The After, Invincible, Knight of Fortune, Red, White, and Blue, and The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. And The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar was the winner. I did not see any of those, so I can't really comment much about them, but congratulations to The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar for winning Best Live Action Short Film. And I didn't see the documentaries on here. I don't think I saw any of them, so I can't say too much about them other than tell you the nominees and who won. The Best Documentary Short Film nominees were The ABCs of Book Banning. I did want to see that, but I haven't. The Barber of Little Rock, Island in Between, The Last Repair Shop, and I'm going to say this wrong, but Na and Wapo. I think I'm saying that right, but it's N-A-I twice, and W-A-I and P-O for Poe. So I think it's Na and Wapo. Forgive me for saying that wrong. But that did not win. The Best Documentary Short Film winner was The Last Repair Shop. Best Documentary Feature Film nominees were Bobby Wine, The People's President, The Eternal Memory, Four Daughters, To Kill a Tiger, and 20 Days in Mariupol. And 20 Days in Mariupol was the winner for Best Documentary Feature Film. Best International Feature Film, the nominees were, is it Lo Capitano from Italy or Io Capitano from Italy? I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. Perfect Days from Japan, Society of the Snow from Spain. We saw that earlier, Society of Snow, in a nomination before. The Teacher's Lounge, Germany, and The Zone of Interest, United Kingdom winner. And Zone of Interest, obviously the more popular film, box office-wise, and it did also win for Best International Feature Film, a film I still need to check out. And our last award was Best Animated Feature Film, and this one, I think I saw a report. Okay, the nominees first were The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, which I think I saw a trailer for. It looks very interesting, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, everyone was assuming Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was a shoo-in for this, and a bit of a shock. And I read a headline, didn't watch the video, that I thought the actor, maybe the voice actor, or an actor in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, called it racist or whatever. Now, I could be wrong with that. Don't quote me on that. But saying that, it was a shame that Boy and the Heron won. And now, even though I did not see Boy and the Heron, I did see Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That's the only one I've seen in this list of nominees for Best Animated Feature Film. The Boy and the Heron did win, and I'm saying it wrong, Mitsuzaki, the famous one. He won for Boy and the Heron, but he also won for, it wasn't Wandering Spirit, Spirited Away, I think. But he did a lot of great animes, and this is probably his last film. And I still heard, because I know Scott watched it, and he said it was a beautiful film. He was happy that it won, even though Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was very, very good by his mission, by mine. He didn't like the ending, and I understand that. We talked about it on a previous episode. If you check out our previous episodes, and you find out what we're talking about in there. But anyway, so you have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse getting upset by The Boy and the Heron, with Boy and the Heron winning Best Animated Feature Film. I don't see race as any kind of issue or any other reasons why, other than I think The Boy and the Heron was probably a more intelligent film and I know it was, from what I understand, it was hand animated, so that probably takes a little bit more effort than computer generated stuff. Not to take away from the wonderful things they did with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I thought it was a near perfect film. I probably enjoyed the original a little bit better, but this one just went all out with all that multiverse of Spider-Men and women and things that were Spider-Man, the mantle of Spider-Man. Different incarnations from different multiverses. But anyway, I was surprised by this. I wasn't totally surprised, because I felt like The Boy and the Heron, and hearing the good stuff that Scott had said about the film, I felt like it was going to win. And I think they will probably see, in the grand scheme of things, that was the correct thing for that winning. But if you're a Spider-Man fan, of course, you feel upset by that. So, that was it. Boy and the Heron. And that's all of our list of the nominees, the categories we care about, or that I had time. Oops, sorry for that. That was all the characters or people or whatever that we had time to talk about that we care about. And so what are your thoughts? Please leave your comments on the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you've watched this live stream. A little over an hour at this point. So I'm about to bring this to a close, but I want to thank everybody who listens, who really responded very positively to our pre-show, and I wish Scott was here for the post-show, but I had to get this post-show up while it's still relevant, because honestly, once the Oscars comes and goes, people don't really care about it. You don't really hear anything until it's Oscar season again. So, I just wanted to get this out there while it's still kind of relevant to people, and also as a time capsule, because it's kind of a thing that we do here on the podcast, one of the things we enjoy, and I really get joy of doing it with Scott. Like I said, I wish we were able to work our schedules out, but I wanted to make sure for you listeners out there, and myself as well, that we get this episode done. I am extremely busy. I've got to get back to my homework, so extremely busy with college work now, and becoming a graphic artist and succeeding at that and getting better every day, honing my craft. So it's hard to put out as much content as I would prefer, but I'm going to do my best. And I want to do more live streams. I seem to enjoy the live streams a little bit better. They're actually with StreamYard, and this is not a plug for StreamYard. Nobody's sponsoring this video, but I really do enjoy StreamYard, the ease and use of it. And so in saying that, it's always good to be able to get on StreamYard and just kind of, get this out there. And I need to start planning these live streams out, but I do a lot of things impulsively, or when I can find the time between taking care of a almost 1-year-old puppy, and having a life and everything else, and with family and different things, and all the things that come up, and homework and school and everything else under the sun. So trying to find time to fit a episode into my schedule is difficult, but I'm happy to do it when I can, and I want to do more of it. Please let us know in the comments what you thought about this episode. If you have any comments, keep them respectful, and respect us, we'll respect you. Hey, that's what we do. But thank y'all for listening and interacting with us. Follow us on Instagram, Geek Homeworld. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, Geek Homeworld. I'm also on there as Savage Tech Man. That's my Xbox gamer tag. I don't get the game as much as I want to, but when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, I will find a way, because that's one of my favorite games. I do a lot of Command & Conquer, which I can't do it online, but I may do some live streams here. We're on Facebook at Geek Homeworld, so go over there, like that page. That's usually where I put updates and stuff. You'll see some stuff on X, but I don't do much social media anymore. I know I need to. It's just I don't have the time. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here, being part of the Geek Homeworld. And I'm going to... I've got to figure my outro out, because I realize my intro is just my intro, and I don't have an outro for the video. It's going to say, it's not going to have the same one. When I do podcasts, you'll notice, if you're a keen listener, you'll notice that I have usually a bit better sound than this, because I've only got, this is the free version, because you can see the StreamYard emblem up there in the corner of the video there. But this only goes out at 720p, so if you're wondering why the resolution is a little bit lower, you have to pay for 1080p, and so that's what it is. But so forgive me on the sound if the sound isn't great. It's just because I'm using the free version of a great thing. If you're trying to live stream, I would recommend StreamYard. I've got an OBS configuration that I hadn't. This is some of the technical behind the scenes stuff, because I love stuff like that. But eventually I'm going to work out that. So maybe I'll run it through OBS, and maybe they won't always be live streams. But for me, it's just easier to pop on the live stream using StreamYard, and that uploads it to YouTube, and then I can go in there and finesse the video with all the keywords and stuff, and all you have to do for the algorithm. But if you're listening, thank you for listening. We're September of this year, 2024, will be 10 years I've been doing the podcast here with different people that have helped me out along the way. I'm always looking for really cool, geeky type people that can hold their own against me, not against me, but with me, who want to come on the podcast, be a guest remotely or otherwise. Most times it's remote. That people that want to come on the podcast and talk about a lot of things. So, Digital Caveman, who has Digital Caveman Presents. You should check him out on Instagram and on YouTube, his YouTube channel. He's really trying to grow it there, and he's done a fantastic job. So proud of him. We've been podcasting since 2008. Give him some love. Go over there, check out his channel, Digital Caveman. That's Digital Caveman with 2 N's on the end. There, Digital Caveman Presents is his channel. It's called Digital Caveman Presents. And he does a lot of unboxings. He does a video every day. I think last year he went 51 out of 52 weeks, every single day, putting out videos, and he's grown exponentially. Definitely an inspiration. I got him into YouTube, and he has ran with it. And through a lot of hard grit and determination and hard work that he puts into his channel. So I know he appreciates every follower, every listener, and check him out. Thank him for joining us in the comment section of the live stream. He was on the road, so he just popped in here, and we appreciate that. I always appreciate him. He's a good friend. And like I said, I wish Scott hopefully will be back when our schedules can line up again in the future episode, and maybe he'll share some of his. He's not really on social media, but maybe he'll share some of his post-Oscar thoughts. He did pretty good on his scorecard, I think, but he'd have to tell you that of who he picked and who he wanted and versus who he thought would win. But anyway, so I gotta go check on my puppy in the other room there. He was taking a nice little afternoon nap, and so I know this is impromptu, but I just want to get this episode out and get it up and posted. I'll get it posted so you can listen to this in audio podcast format. But check us out, Geek Homeworld. I think it's 20. What is the? I need to look and see what our name of it's at Geek Homeworld 4248. That's because I've only got 51 subs at the time of this March 12th, 2024. So trying to grow subs on the channel, and so that would be fantastic if I could. But if you get it, oops, sorry about that. So if you get a chance, go to Geek Homeworld. That's kind of what we look like. Geek Homeworld there. It's at Geek Homeworld 4248 on YouTube. I really would love you to sub the channel and get some thumbs up to the videos. Check them all out and see what you think, and let us know, and I'll try to put some things and then we can see what happens. We can have people on the podcast here. I'm always looking for interesting people, and I really want to encourage the interaction of people. So thank you everybody who has been part of the Big Geek Homeworld and helping out and everything else. And we've got some great things planned this year. So anyway, I'm rambling on. I just wanted to be on the live stream and talk with you guys and all that. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. And let me roll my intro/outro here as we roll out here. And this has been the Geek Homeworld podcast. And let's see, I'm going to throw that banner up there. This has been episode 168 of Geek Homeworld, OSCARS 2024 post show. Thank you guys, and take care. Bye-bye. Welcome to the Geek Homeworld podcast. I'm your host, Ed, aka The Savage Tech Man. We talk film, TV, and tech, all from a geek perspective. You can find us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and you can subscribe and follow on YouTube at Geek Homeworld. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Be a part of the Geek Homeworld.